This is a picture of my grandparents. So we called them like the Jewish way. That's my booby. Her name was Sala Kurtz, but her maiden name was Goldberg, and that's my grandfather, my Jaja, and his name was Abraham Kurtz, and they were both from Radom, Poland, and they were actually cousins.
Cousins?
Yeah.
Before they got married?
Well, they're like third or fourth cousins. They're not very close cousins, but they recognized each other in the displaced persons camp, and they got married.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yes, they got. And she was actually 8 years younger, so he remembers he used to see her skipping rope and laughing at little kids playing.
It's so how far? So they went to the Auschwitz concentration camp straight after the war?
Well,
during the war.
During the war. So this is my booby. She was in Auschwitz. I'm not sure exactly how long. I think at least for 1943 and 44, because she said that she remembered in 1944 when all the Hungarians were brought in, and before that she was in different forced labor camps and ghettos, and eventually she was marched in a forced death march from Auschwitz to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, and that's where she was liberated by the American Army in 1945. And my grandfather, she spoke about her experiences more, but my Jaja, we know that he was in Dachau. We know he was in different forced labor camps, and he really didn't talk about it, so we were missing a lot of details. But he was liberated from Theresen in 1945. Both of my parents were graduate students, and they had 3 children in 4 years, and so they were lucky to have, actually both sets of grandparents really helped to take care of us, so I was around my grandparents all the time, and I am so grateful that I was so fortunate to have such amazing grandparents, and they took such incredible care of us, like they really poured themselves into us, and they were so proud of us and so in love with us that we really felt like superstars. And it was a tremendous childhood, I have to tell you.
Grandparent stories are living inside of you. So what story you remember the most? It could be a positive story, because you said you experienced both acts of kindness and terror.
Actually, so a lot of obviously very scary stories about when my booby arrived in Auschwitz, and there was a lady who had a set of twins, and this is something that Dr. Mengele would look forward to do experiments on. And there was a lady in the train car, who refused to give up her twins, and I believe she was shot in front of her, and the children were ripped away. Stories like that, and also about how much she weighed when she was liberated. She weighed 49 pounds, which was half of her normal weight. She was basically a human skeleton. Also, about she was working in a factory as a slave laborer, and her hand had been caught in the machinery, and it had damaged her hand, so she wasn't able to work, and she was put in the quote-unquote infirmary, and she was tipped off that everybody who was in the infirmary was going to be liquidated, was going to be murdered, so she and her friends dug a hole in the ground, and she lived in this hole in the ground covered by earth and snow for...
How long for?
I don't know. At least until her hand healed, and she was eating snow, and somehow they were sneaking bits of bread to her to keep her alive until her hand healed, and then they somehow, integrated her back into the ranks of the women in the camp, and didn't realize that she had rejoined them, and she just went back to work. And just lots of stories like that, and I know, there's just so much, but it was more than information. It was like a general atmosphere that just knowing that everybody is named after and everyone is just dead. They're dead, and not only dead, they're murdered. And I don't know how many people, I don't wish this on anyone, would know what it's like to inherit a family history where people have been murdered. How do you tell your great grandmother has been murdered? Everyone was murdered. Like, it was just like a general, I don't know how you would call it, like ethos, like the air was thick with this you could feel almost the presence of the people who had been murdered around you, like their presence. They're not like ghosts, but like their personalities, like everything about them was hanging around you, and you kind of grew up with them. At the same time, there was tremendous joy and humor, and they didn't dwell on sad stuff, only if there was like a trigger, like a reminder, a memorial service, or something that would trigger it, and then the like sorrow would pour out, and the stories. But my grandmother was always looking for somebody to tell her stories to, which
I think that's normal, right?
Yeah, exactly, because you're born witness to something like unparalleled in history. You want people to know about it, and you're also looking for validation. You're looking to try and make sense of it. So she would tell anybody who would listen to stories, and whether they wanted to hear it or not, which sometimes was funny.
I was, of course. What kept them going? Did they ever say?
Well, my Jaja, my grandfather, didn't really talk about his experience, but I know from living with my grandmother, she had an iron will to live. She would not stop at anything. If somebody said no, she would just keep pushing.
Okay.
Like, she never gave up. Like, I don't know if at some point she did have doubts, like, am I going to make it? Should I just give up? But I know she told me that after her mother was killed, she came to her in a dream. And then she was wearing white socks. And I don't know what white socks means. Some people have told me it means like they're in heaven. It's a sign of purity or of comfort, like the person is at peace or something like that. And she had a dream, and she told her she was going to live.
She's going to live.
She's going to live. Right. And that she was going to survive. So.
And that was in Auschwitz?
That was in one of the camps, I don't know. And she took that as like a sign that I am going to survive, so I have to keep going. And I know it was often little things like this that kept people.
Wait, after that, like their story lives within you, inside of you. So then how... so you think that basically that determines like your life and your choices in life?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Because you said you work for Red Cross and you volunteer.
Yes, you're always looking for opportunities to help people. Because first of all, you so cherish the fact that you are here. The fact that I am even here is a miracle. The fact that my mother was born is a miracle. That my grandparents were survived. That you have been given this unbelievable chance, so you shouldn't squander it. So you can either use it for something frivolous or you can use it for something good. And you see how fortunate you are, and so many people around you are not as fortunate. So why wouldn't I go out of my way to help them? I mean, really, I mean, what does it cost me? It benefits me.
Yeah.
So and there's so many people out there who are suffering in tragic circumstances. And what if somebody in 1939 had thought that way? You know? Then we wouldn't have, and indeed there were. There were many people who went out of their way to hide Jewish people and risking their own lives. So what if more people had thought this way, then this would not have happened. So it's also a way of changing the world, right? One person at a time. You have an expression in Hebrew, tikkun olam, which is to heal the world. And we're actually commanded by our religion not to be passive. We have to be actively involved in helping people. It's not enough just to say, okay, I'm not going to hurt people. You have to actively go out and seek opportunities to help.
Yes.
And my grandfather so valued life, he literally would not kill an insect. This is not to say their house was filled with bugs, but if he saw a fly, he would open the window and push it out the window. Because just extinguishing that life was painful to him, because he had seen so much life taken so callously that even just killing a fly.
No, that's right.
But one thing, I mean, what they created was love. They just created love around them. So much love. Love for their family, for their friends. When anyone had a party, a wedding, a bar mitzvah, it was on a scale. Hundreds of people came, celebrating, dancing. Because they were so joyous. It was like such a life-affirming event to show that they had survived with their friends and they were going to live.
Yeah.
They were so determined to live. So this is something I so miss. that the survivor community was so infused with life and vigor, and you don't really see that in subsequent generations. Everybody's, thinking, whatever, to focusing on the little problem. The survivors just wanted to live and enjoy and have fun, and they created love and everything they did, and food, and everything was love. Not to say that there weren't hard moments. But for the most part, it was like a very, very loving, joyous, funny, oh my gosh, such a vibrant atmosphere.